What if I told you that the greatest story ever told is not the one you know? What if the Bible is not the beginning, but the history of the victors, written over the ruins of a fallen, forgotten age? You've been told that Leviathan and Behemoth are allegories, perhaps an ancient poet's grand descriptions of a crocodile and a hippopotamus. This is a comforting lie, a nursery rhyme told to obscure a terrifying and magnificent truth. The truth is this: Leviathan and Behemoth were not animals. They were the defeated gods of a primordial creation, cosmic jailers of a dead universe, and their story, hidden in plain sight within the Book of Job and apocryphal texts, is the key to understanding a war that was fought before Adam ever took his first breath. The Bible doesn't just describe them, it displays them as trophies of that cosmic war, and their final apocalyptic purpose reveals the true staggering scale of divine power. What you have been taught is a fable designed to keep you from asking the real questions. Tonight we don't just ask the questions, we unveil the answers. Let's start by shattering the mundane explanation. The Book of Job, chapters 40 and 41, presents a challenge from God to Job. For centuries, theologians have attempted to domesticate these passages, to shrink these cosmic beings into the confines of our known world. Behemoth, they say, is the hippopotamus. They point to verse 15. Behold, Behemoth, which I made as I made you, he eats grass like an ox. Simple enough, right? A large herbivore. But the text immediately rebels against this simplistic interpretation. Read on. His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron. Is this the poetry of a Bronze Age writer describing thick bones, or is it a literal description of a being whose very structure is beyond mere flesh and blood? It describes a being of manufactured, metallic strength. Imagine if the writer wasn't using metaphor, but was struggling to describe something fundamentally alien to our biology. Then comes the true mystery. Under the lotus plants he lies, in the shelter of the reeds, and in the marsh. This sounds like a hippo, but it's a deliberate misdirection, a detail to anchor the unimaginable in the familiar, because the very next verses obliterate this picture. Behold, if a river rages, he is not alarmed, he is confident, though Jordan rushes against his mouth. This is not an animal that lives in a river, it is a being for whom a raging river, a flash flood, is a minor inconvenience. But the key, the verse that shatters the hippo theory forever, is Job 40, verse 20. For the mountains yield food for him. Let that sink in, not the grasses on the mountains themselves. What kind of being consumes geology for sustenance? What kind of creature grazes on mountain ranges? This is not a biological organism as we understand it. This is a primordial force of nature, a being tied to the very bedrock and substance of the planet. The text is not describing a large animal, it is describing the living embodiment of the Earth's foundational power. Now, look at the first clue to its true identity. Job 40-19. He is the first of the ways of God. The Hebrew is reshit, the same root word used in Genesis 1-1, in the beginning. This is not just chief among the animals, this is the God prototype type, the firstborn of God's physical creations, the Alpha, form of a previous cosmic order. Before the mountains were set, before the current world was shaped, Behemoth was taught. He represents the stable, indestructible material foundation of a world that no longer exists, a world that was unmade. When God displays Behemoth to Job, he is not saying, "Look at this impressive animal I made." He is saying, "Look upon the living foundation of the world that came before yours, a world I dismantled. Now, tell me, Job, do you still wish to question my authority?" And if Behemoth is the primordial land, then his counterpart, Leviathan, is the primordial abyss. The conventional explanation is even weaker here, a crocodile, or perhaps a whale. It's an insult to the text. Job chapter 41 opens with a series of taunts that expose the absurdity of such a comparison. Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook or press down his tongue with a cord? Will he make a covenant with you to take him for your servant forever? The questions are rhetorical, designed to emphasize the absolute untamable sovereignty of this being. No human, no earthly power can control it. This is not about the difficulty of hunting a large reptile. It is about the impossibility of commanding a cosmic force. The descriptions defy biology. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. Imagine a creature whose eyes glow with the light of sunrise, whose every breath is a storm of energy. Out of his mouth go flaming torches, sparks of fire leap forth. Out of his nostrils comes forth smoke, as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame comes forth from his mouth. For millennia, this has been dismissed as poetic hyperbole. But what if it isn't? What if we are reading a literal account of a draconic biothermal being, a creature that is part energy, part matter, a living furnace of immense power? We have creatures with bioluminescence in the depths of our own oceans, faint glimmers in the dark. What is being described here is on an entirely different scale. It is not a reflection of light, but a source of it, a source of fire, a source of cosmic energy. His defense is absolute. His back is made of rows of shields, shut up closely as with a seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another, they clasp each other, and cannot be separated. The text continues, stating that swords, spears, darts, and javelins are useless, counted as straw. Iron is treated as straw, and bronze as rotten wood. Arrows cannot make him flee. Slingstones are for him like stubble. Clubs are counted as stubble. He laughs at the rattling of the javelin. Upon earth there is not his like a creature without fear. This is not a description of tough crocodile hide. This is a description of absolute invulnerability. An armor not forged from biology, but from the fundamental laws of a different creation. This being is indestructible by any means known to man, by any weapon of this current world. Leviathan is the serpent of the cosmic sea, the embodiment of the untamed, chaotic abyss. The Hebrew word for the deep in Genesis 1-2 is tehom. It's a word that echoes a much older story, the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish. In that story, the world is created after the storm god Marduk slays the primordial sea dragon Tiamat. Tehom, the linguistic link is undeniable. The writers of Genesis were not writing in a vacuum. They were writing in conversation with, and in opposition to, the myths of the cultures around them. They were telling their version of the story. But in their version, the chaos dragon wasn't slain and used to create the world. In the biblical account, the chaos dragon, Leviathan, was subdued, tamed, imprisoned in the very deeps it once commanded. Psalm 74 speaks of this battle directly. You divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the sea monsters on the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness. This isn't a prophecy. It is a recounting of a past event, a divine war where God crushed this multi-headed chaos serpent. Isaiah 27:1 refers to Leviathan as the piercing serpent, that crooked serpent, who will be dealt with in the final day. But the language suggests this is a final settling of an ancient score. He is the warden of chaos, the untamable energy of the pre-creation state, locked away but not destroyed. A prisoner. So let's put the pieces together. Imagine a reality before Genesis 1. A first creation. In this creation, the foundational principles are different. The land is embodied by a titanic being of earth and metal, Behemoth. The cosmic ocean, the abyss of unformed energy and chaos, is embodied by a fiery, invulnerable serpent, Leviathan. They are not good or evil, they simply sotart. They are the twin pillars of that first cosmos. Then, a cataclysm, a war, a new god. The God of Abraham asserts a new order. The old world is shattered, unmade. Genesis 1-2 describes the result. The earth was without form and void. The Hebrew is satohu vavahu. This doesn't just mean empty, it means a ruin, a wasteland. The wreckage of a battlefield. The God of Genesis then begins to create not from nothing, but from the ruins of what came before. He separates the light from the darkness, the waters from the waters. He is bringing a new divine order to the chaos of a defeated reality. And what of the wardens of that old reality? They are not destroyed. They are defeated, bound, and kept as proof of power. This is the core truth, the central hook that changes everything. The appearance of Behemoth and Leviathan in the Book of Job is the ultimate display of cosmic authority. Job, a righteous man, has lost everything and dares to question the justice of God's new world. And God's answer is not a gentle reassurance. It is a terrifying, awe-inspiring tour of a cosmic prison. He brings Job face to face with the imprisoned titans of the old world and asks him, "You question my management of your small life. Behold the forces I unmade. Behold the gods of the abyss I chained. I defeated the very principles of the previous creation. I tamed the living land and the chaos sea. Their power was absolute in their time, and I broke them. Tell me again, Job, about your wisdom. Tell me again how the universe should be run." This reframes the entire book of Job. It is not a philosophical debate about suffering. It is a revelation of cosmic hierarchy. Job is being shown the sheer, untamed power that exists outside of his reality, a power that God subdued to create the very world Job stands upon. The message is clear. You exist because of my victory. Your world is safe because these forces are chained. Your suffering, as immense as it is a speck of dust compared to the cosmic struggles that define reality itself. This interpretation may sound radical, a departure from safe traditional readings, but this is where we turn to the forbidden knowledge, the texts that were deemed too strange, too revealing to be included in the final canonical Bible. We turn to the Book of Enoch. For hundreds of years, Enoch was lost to the Western world, known only through fragments and references. But its discovery and translation confirmed what many ancient traditions had whispered. It contains a more detailed, unfiltered cosmology, a look behind the curtain of the canonical texts. Sand, what does the Book of Enoch say about these two titans? Chapter 60 gives us the missing piece of the puzzle, the explicit confirmation of their nature. And on that day 2 monsters will be separated, a female monster named Leviathan, to dwell in the abysses of the ocean over the fountains of the waters, and the male is named Behemoth, who occupies with his breast a waste wilderness named Didane, on the east of the garden where the elect and righteous dwell. Let's break this down. Enoch explicitly calls them sot monsters, sot, not animals. It confirms their domains, Leviathan in the deepest parts of the sea, Behemoth in a desolate, primordial wilderness. It gives them genders. Leviathan is female, Behemoth is male. And most critically, it states they were separated too. Why? Why would God create a male and female of a species only to forcibly separate them at the dawn of time? The text implies the reason: to prevent them from procreating. Because if these two primordial forces, the embodiment of ancient earth and ancient chaos, were to unite, their offspring would be powerful enough to unmake the new creation. Their union would represent the return of the old cosmos, the end of God's current order. It would be the apocalypse born not from sin or judgment, but from the resurgence of a defeated cosmic principle. This separation is the ultimate act of control. It's not enough to defeat them in battle. It's not enough to imprison them. Their very natures must be kept apart, their cosmic polarity held in permanent stasis to protect the fragile reality of our world. The Book of Enoch, a text revered by early Christians and quoted in the canonical Epistle of Jude, hands us the smoking gun. It validates the reading of Job not as poetry, but as a window into a pre-Adamic cosmology. It confirms that Behemoth and Leviathan are not mere creatures. They are cosmic counterparts, a separated pair whose reunion would mean the end of the world. This leads us to the final, and perhaps most profound, part of the mystery, their ultimate purpose. Why were they kept? Why not simply annihilate them after the war? The answer lies in eschatology, the theology of the end times. Numerous ancient Jewish rabbinic traditions, building on the clues in the scriptures, tell a fascinating story about the end of days. They speak of a final battle not between armies, but between these two primordial titans. At the end of time, Behemoth and Leviathan will be unleashed from their prisons to fight each other to the death. Imagine the scene: the living continent, the mountain eater rising from the earth, the fiery serpent, the queen of the abyss, rising from the sea. A final, cataclysmic clash between the two foundational forces of the old world. A battle so immense it shakes the foundations of the new. In this final duel, they will destroy each other, bringing their age, their cosmic principle, to a final and definitive end. Their mutual destruction is the final act in the cosmic drama that began before Genesis. But what happens next is the key. The traditions state that after their demise, God will take their flesh and serve it at a great banquet for the righteous. This sounds bizarre, even grotesque, to our modern ears. But it is symbolism of the highest order. This is not about cannibalism or a monstrous feast. To consume something in ancient thought is to internalize its essence, to claim final victory over it. By feasting on the flesh of Leviathan and Behemoth, the righteous are not just celebrating. They are partaking in the very substance of God's victory. They are internalizing the conquered chaos and the subdued primordial earth. They are absorbing the final vestiges of the old, defeated creation, making its power part of their own redeemed nature. It is the ultimate symbol that the war is over, that all opposition to God's order has not just been defeated, but has been integrated and neutralized forever. The universe is finally and completely sanctified. This is the grand, hidden narrative of Leviathan and Behemoth. A story that begins in a war before time, continues with their imprisonment as terrifying trophies of divine power, is clarified in forbidden texts that reveal their true nature as cosmic counterparts, and ends in an apocalyptic feast that symbolizes the final triumph of divine order. The story starts with what seems to be a description of a hippo and a crocodile, and ends with the righteous of God consuming the flesh of defeated gods to seal the fate of the universe. Think about the implications. It means the Bible is a far more complex and far more dangerous book than we are led to believe. It contains the echoes of other worlds, other creations, other gods. The text is layered, and the surface story, the one taught in churches and synagogues, is designed to be safe. It's the story of man, of sin, of redemption. But underneath that, there is a darker, older, and grander story. A story of cosmic conflict, of clashing realities. Genesis is not a story of creation from nothing. It is a story of reclamation, of building a new garden on the ashes of a fallen kingdom. And the monsters aren't just monsters, they are the gravestones of that kingdom. We are living in the second draft of reality. A reality built upon the foundations of a defeated order, and the evidence has been there all along, not just in the Bible, but in the mythologies of cultures all across the ancient world. The Babylonians had Tiamat. The Egyptians had the chaos serpent Apep, who battled the sun god Re every night. The Norse had Jotmungandr, the world serpent coiled in the sea that surrounds the world. The Greeks had Typhon, the monstrous storm, Yant, who challenged Zeus for supremacy of the cosmos. Humanity has a shared, deeply embedded cultural memory of a war against a chaos monster, a serpentine force from the deep. These are not all separate, unrelated stories. They are the fragmented echoes of the same singular event, told from different perspectives, remembered by different survivors of a global prehistoric cataclysm. The Bible presents the definitive, victor's version of that event. It names the Titans. It records their defeat, and it hides their final purpose in prophecy. Let's return to Job. Now, when God says from the whirlwind, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth?" the question has a terrifying new weight. He isn't just asking about the moment of geological formation. He is asking, "Where were you, Job, when I fought the living personification of the earth and the sea? Where were you when I unmade a universe to create your own? Where were you when I chained the Titans whose power could erase you from existence with a single thought?" Job's response is the only one possible. "I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me which I did not know. Therefore I despise myself, and repent in dust and ashes." He has not just been humbled, he has been initiated. He has seen behind the veil of his own reality, and has glimpsed the terrifying, magnificent, and violent truth of the cosmos. This knowledge changes everything. It challenges us to read the scriptures not as a flat, historical document, but as a deep, multi-layered codex containing secrets about the nature of reality itself. It suggests that what we call mythology is not fiction, but is rather a distorted memory of real events, real beings, and real cosmic struggles. We are living in a world built on profound, ancient secrets. The forces of chaos and primordial order were not abstract concepts. They were living entities, titanic beings whose defeat was necessary for our existence. So, the next time you read the Bible or hear the names Leviathan and Behemoth, do not picture an animal. Picture a defeated king and queen of a lost cosmos. Picture the imprisoned wardens of a dead creation. Behemoth, the silent, brooding strength of the primordial land, chained in a desolate wilderness. Leviathan, the fiery, untamable queen of the chaos abyss, coiled in the crushing darkness of the deep, her glowing eyes like dying stars. They are not allegories, they are prisoners of war. They are a warning, and they are a prophecy. They are the proof that our world is not the first, and a promise that the final chapter of their story will coincide with the final chapter of our own. The scriptures are a map, but we have been taught to read it as a simple map of a small local town. In reality, it is a cosmic chart, a guide to ancient wars, fallen worlds, and imprisoned powers. The comfortable narratives are the shallow waters, safe for wading. But the real truth, the forbidden knowledge, resides in the deeps, where the titans still dream. The question is, are you content to stay in the shallows? Or are you brave enough to explore the abyss? What other titans, what other fallen worlds, what other cosmic secrets lie dormant between the lines, waiting for an eye willing to see them? The truth is not lost. It was never lost. It has simply been waiting, locked away in the very books we thought we knew. The journey into that mystery has just begun.